when we do the work around healing the self-love and self-worth, then we're like, can I swear, by the way?
Yeah, oh my God, of course.
Okay.
Yes.
like, fuck yeah, I deserve the best and to rest and to really create my life on my terms.
Hello, hello, and welcome to, I didn't even introduce this. The Tea On is what this is called, the Recip Tea. And we talk about things, preferably things that matter. Do you have tea? Oh, you actually do have tea, of
Oh,
course.
yes.
What are you sipping on? Tell me.
Lemon ginger
Of
tea.
course.
It's
I
nice
love
and
that.
warming.
Yeah, I'm doing lemongrass and jasmine because
Oh, lovely.
grass. I've had a lot of. Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh, I am so, 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 so grateful that you made the time and your gorgeous life to sit down with me, to talk with me. I'm going to give you the space to introduce yourself. But I just want to immediately impart from my own experience of you. You are someone who showed up in my journey exactly when I needed you. I think I was on my own journey of divine feminine healing and goddess activation. And as I mentioned to you before, I was finding a lot of people who were facilitating in that space to be a bit whitewashed. And I didn't feel like I could hear my voice or see myself in them. And it wasn't until I stumbled across your work that was so inclusive, that was so yeah, just all encompassing and honor in the tradition of the history of this kind of work and these kind of rituals that I really felt seen and heard and held. You do incredible work with Flourishing Goddess School and the mystery program that I'm in right now. So yes, let the people know who you are and what you're behind.
Oh, thank you so much, my love, for having me. I'm so honored to be here with my fellow goddess sister. I am Syma Kharal. I am the creatrix, founderess, priestess behind Flourishing Goddess, and it is my sacred life blessing, dharma mission to liberate us, all of us, and lead us back to the full embodiment of the divine feminine, the goddess. I call her like the full spectrum goddess because for us to remember and resurrect our full feminine power is just the most magical and I think essential rite of passage and reclamation for us as women, which opens us to creating our most flourishing lives. Like this is the pathway that I found after my own journey of healing through a lot of trauma and therapy and other masculine traditional approaches only taking me so far. That as a woman, and I think especially as a highly sensitive woman, um, uncovering or the goddess finding me
Mm.
was the truest, deepest path to transformation, liberation, and then the embodiment of my full spiritual and feminine power that has helped me to create this life that is a life that really should not have been in the cards for me, or anyone who's gone through like that depth of trauma. So I deeply believe in the power of the work of the divine feminine to heal anything and manifest everything in the most beautiful feminine way, like from pleasure and power. So
Oh,
that's what I do for my ladies all over the world. I'm so blessed.
casually. Yeah, casually just living a life of pure feminine pleasure and power. I love that. And I think it's funny because I find that sometimes when we hear that, there's like automatically like resistance to it of like having to deprogram the fact that like, well, can we even live a life of full pleasure? I feel like that's not conducive to this like patriarchal system that we're growing up in. And so it's so worth noting that it takes so much dismantling. So I'm curious to know if you still find yourself having to um counteract ways of like programming of like maybe I'm having too much rest or maybe I need to be more in my yang. Do you find that you still have to kind of like deprogram a bit?
Not now, but I did struggle with it before. So now it's like the knowing that this is so essential. And now I'm all about living from overflow, right? And that overflow is connecting to the inner source of Lakshmi. She's the goddess of all overflow. Of people always think it's just like success and money and abundance, but she's actually within every woman, our infinite ocean of bliss, joy, love, pleasure, and abundance, and dharma and purpose and meaning. And to get to that place is the work, right? Because, like, yes, many women, I was entrenched, and all this programming was imprinted very deeply. Growing up in a very religious home, a very patriarchal, very oppressive to the feminine, stay-at-home mom raising 6 kids, a very narcissistic and abusive, tyrannical, oppressive father. And so I remember if I would do something for myself as a teenager, as like a little part of self-care, my father would guilt me for it and call me selfish. And like if something as simple as making myself a sandwich, and there was a lot of guilt for anything in the religion that's pleasurable. Like you can't dance, you can't dress a certain way, you're whoring yourself, or you have no modesty or no shame. So it takes a lot for us to recognize what were the messages that were imposed upon me that bring up my resistance and my guilt for resting, for receiving, for replenishing, for being in pleasure and being in overflow. It takes audacity to claim that for yourself. It takes actually like really coming home to our divine self-worth and value, right? And the self-worth and self-love piece is something I think most of us have to work on as well. Even I have clients who had lovely upbringings, but maybe something happened in school and the boy you like didn't like you back, or do you know what I mean? Or a sibling got more attention for you for something. And so I found people of all backgrounds, when we do the work around healing the self-love and self-worth, then we're like, can I swear, by the way?
Oh my God, of course.
Okay. like, fuck yeah, I deserve the best, and to rest and to really create my life on my terms, where it's, what are my values? And like, I'm a Taurus woman, so I think pleasure for me is a very deep, natural value. I would love for that to be for all women, but our pleasures look very different. Like my pleasure is the hot bath with the overflowing rose petals and some pink champagne and chocolate and orgasms and all that stuff.
Yes.
For someone else, it could be like reading a book and having a blanket and a cup of tea, and that's your pleasure. But yes, my love, like I want to come back to your question and hope I ground this into there, is that all of us have this resistance that comes up, and the healing around that is returning home to our divine worthiness, that it is safe and sacred for me to receive and to be in pleasure and joy and overflow, and to deeply commit to that.
Oh my God, that was so delicious. 100%. Also, I strongly encourage cursing. I think it's so important. That shot me out. And yes, everything that you said, I think it's also it takes work, right? It's committing to the work, but understanding that the work really is the embodying of rebellion and coming back to who you were before. It's not sort of like creating this new version of yourself. It's
Yes.
home, you know what I mean? So that's exactly what you noted. And I think that's so important because and I always say this, I feel like a woman who is in her activated Shakti, in that divine feminine goddess embodiment, there is an essence that she carries. There's an aura that you immediately sense when she walks into a room. There's this state of calm, there's a sense of sovereignty, of assuredness. And so I'm curious to know, because as someone who like radiates that, do you ever wake up in the morning and like not feel in that activation? And if so, what do you do? How do you respond to that?
Of course it happens. And this is what I talk about as the full spectrum goddess. So for me, what that means is that we embrace our darkest, shadowiest self and our divine goddess self, who feels like, queen of the world, right? So, we as women are so cyclical. And, we talk about that in my mystery school, but we are the cycle. And the cycle of our femininity is that we have the shadow for all, like the illuminated light part of us as well. And in those days that I wake up like that, the goddess helps me to embrace it and not fight it. I will never wake up and say, oh, I can't believe I feel like this today. Or there's never like criticism around, I've done so much work and, it's just like, oh, okay, this is here. And I go down to the depths of it, right? I would like not exaggerate, but I know you're talking about the initiation we're in right now, right?
Yes.
In school, it's all fire. I will unleash the fire. So it's just like, I will get so deep into the darkness of whatever has come up that I kind of can delve into the root of, oh, okay, this is still a childhood thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what do I need in that moment? My inner child needs a hug, or just to know that whatever, you're powerful, or you're safe, or I'm here. And it's like that mood that you wake up in, or that shitty day that you're having, or feeling the self-doubt, and whatever comes up, the fear is for me a catalyst for deeper and deeper healing. And so actually like seeing it through is how we can rise out of it. And when I talk about the goddess being cyclical, it's like, okay, so we're down here, we're having that day, we're like at the depths of the darkness, and oh, why everything sucks, whatever it is, right? And then we embrace it. I call it the dark goddess. We just say, what else? And we be with that part of us with deepest witnessing and compassion. And if she needs to cry, we let her cry. If she needs to rage and scream and hit a pillow, or or write it all out and burn it, I feel like ritual is so powerful for that as well. Like movement for the feminine. It's so important for our feminine beings, right? Because those emotions are in our bodies. We're such like physical creatures. So I love doing some kind of physical practice to get the shit out, once it's been cleansed and released. And then you feel purified and you feel like more embodied in your self-love, because you have basically just like been your own therapist and your own healer and your own mother or father or best friend or whatever, whoever love we needed in that moment. We have done that for ourselves. So I embrace all the darkness. And for me, all those parts of me are as welcome and as sacred as the days I wake up feeling like, which are both of the days. But as you said, there are those days as well. And I think sometimes when we do a lot of spiritual work, we might have an expectation like, I should always wake up feeling high vibe, right? And the goddess gives us permission to just be and to embrace our full selves and know it's a cycle. Okay, I'm here right now. That's okay. And then there's going to be the rise and the ascent, and I'll be on top of everything again. And then it'll come down, and it's all welcome. It's all okay. And what that tells us is that it tells every part of us that all of me is welcome. And sometimes that is actually our first experience of unconditional love that we offer ourselves.
Oh my God. Yes.
Can you imagine how that enriches our relationships? Like I get made fun of, Eric and I, because our family, sometimes we like stayed with them in between our travels, and they would say that we never fight, we never argue. And people make fun, like, okay, you're that couple who doesn't fight, but you argue. Like, we don't argue. If we ever have a thing at all, we just express our feelings in the most loving, respectful way. And so people make fun of like how we never fight and how we're lovey-dovey we are. But I believe we're able to be that for each other in our relationship because both of us entered our relationship already knowing how to heal and take care of and love ourselves. And when we are in this place, it elevates all of our relationships. Not just relationship, Jasmine. It's like you manifest that promotion or more money, more abundance, dream clients. Like, I manifested you, we manifest each other, because it's just like a natural, inevitable reflection of the embodied self-love and self-care that we've given ourselves.
Yes. Oh my God, how beautiful. It's so funny. I'm currently watching, along with the rest of the world, White Lotus. And like there's this scene in it where this one couple is constantly gossiping about this other couple because they never fight and they never bicker. They're always in this loving state. And I remember watching it and thinking, they're just projecting what we've been told is supposed to be what a relationship looks like. And it's so important to live in the truth of that and to be the dismantling of like cycles and if you grow up around a lot of chaos and a lot of arguments, internalizing that as that being how communication is, and then thinking that that's kind of how everyone has to operate. And so I think, yeah, that was just such a beautiful example that ties into something that I recently also realized. But everything that you said is so absolutely on point. I think it's so important to honor the fact that we are as cyclical as the seasons, our
Yes.
cycles. I am bleeding right now, which means
Mm,
outside will not be seeing much of me. I will be in bed with my
love that
heating.
for you.
Yes, and it's so important to know that, like, when
At
I'm in
the full moon too, by the way. How
I
magical.
know, always, always. It's
Red moon lady.
red
Red
moon.
priest.
I was a white moon
Yeah.
a couple months ago, and then we aligned.
Oh, it's shifted.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense because I'm in your program, and yeah, it's well honoring the fact that our bodies are in constant communication with us, and being in honor of that rather than resisting it. And you brought up such an important point that is really relevant to my current journey, which is the fact that, like, we can put expectation on our spiritual journey and think that we always need to be in this heightened state of high vibration and constant synchronicities. And I find that I can get mad at myself if
Mm.
I deviate from living in that. So, for instance, I'm someone who I wake up every morning, long meditation, I'll have my cacao or my mushroom medicine, and I'm like living in this embodiment. And then I'll have a weekend where I go out with my friends and I eat something processed, or I have wine, or we watch reality television, or we like gossip or something. And I come home and I'm like, I've ingested toxins, right? And so I'm so curious to know, how do you navigate being in this like 3D human experience while nurturing this 5D human if that makes sense, if that's not too convoluted.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely get where you're coming from. And I would say earlier on my spiritual path, it was the same thing. Like I remember, doing yoga teacher training, and it was like all vegetarian food, and keeping your vessel pure and do no harm, ahizma, and all the things. And then it came back feeling so purified. And like you said, like even hearing people gossip just felt like, oh, you know.
Right.
But then it's like as you get older, I think something shifts, but I think we can apply this no matter what our age is.
Yeah.
Again, the goddess is full permission.
Mm.
Even if we think of some goddess mythologies, honey, there was a lot of drama, and like it can be soap operas just about the goddesses, mythologies. But what I love again is like, Aphrodite perhaps being wrathful, who's the goddess of love. It's like even the goddess of love, you don't fuck with her,
Yeah.
so she can be wrathful and indulgent. And she'd probably be the perfect goddess who'd want to watch Netflix and binge and have like an orgy at the same time and have, like unlimited wine and get drunk. And like, that's like the excess of the Aphrodisian goddess energy, right? It's just complete self forgiveness and compassion for the full spectrum experience. And
Mm.
that there is a reason we are here in this world, in this time, in this body, in this physical human experience, that we had the option of just being like floating spirits up in the higher realms, right? And we
Mhm.
could have chosen to be guides for others, or just hang out and do meditative spiritual things up in the
Mm.
heavens. But we specifically chose to come here with the world, with all of its craziness and chaos and all of its darkness
Mm.
and all of its options. And I think like the goddess life is one that is enriched with the full range of experiences, just in the same way that we can, as you said, be very spiritual, but we're still going to experience tragedy and loss and things that are just beyond our control. I call them initiations, those challenges. You probably know I had a long infertility journey, even as someone who practiced moon magic and menstrual magic and yoni eggs and steams, and like had so much like a vibrant radiant womb, and then still to have that block. I
Mm.
was also hard on myself, like how can this be, even though I've come so far.
Yeah.
And what it's given is a lot of grace,
Mm.
grace for both our spiritual life, that if something bad happens, we haven't manifested it, we're not being punished, or we're not bad manifestors, that this is actually like trusting us to rise
Yeah.
and to be more in our power, and to be more purified and come more in our truth. And then in the human, it's like we get to be and experience it all.
Mm.
Like every for the goddess has its place and it has its value, and we get to give ourselves grace, and actually appreciate how it enriches everything.
Yes, so we get to give ourselves grace. I love that. And a mantra that I've really centered this specific full moon in on is you can't bully yourself into betterment. Like I find that like that inner critic, like if we need to be our own, what you mentioned earlier, which is our own unconditional love. We need to be that immediate source, because if we expect it anywhere else, we kind of have to be the mirroring of that. So I think that, you know, what you said is so, so valuable, and I will take it, because I need to work on that, but lovingly and then with grace and patience. And so for anyone who is beginning to embark on this journey for themselves, anyone who is starting to recognize the fact that I've been disconnected from my divine feminine, especially when it comes to something that you say a lot is you can have it all. And I feel like a lot of people find resistance with that, because we've been told it's either work or motherhood, or you have to sacrifice something, or you know, things take, everything needs to be something so hardly worked for, and you need to sacrifice your time and your energy in order to gain and earn and deserve. And so for anyone that's beginning to sort of like want the fullest potential of their lives, what are some first steps you would impart?
Okay. Well, so first of all, again, I think I'm feeling the fiery energy of the initiation you just did.
Yeah, I know. I'm like screaming. Totally. I know.
Because I'm feeling this fuck this shit come through
Yes.
around the patriarchy that tells us we have to work our asses off. And you know, we have a sister in our group right now who talked about, who's really intelligent, and this happens to so many clients, this pattern that I have to work so hard to get the thing that I want that by the time I get it, I'm freaking exhausted and burnt out, and it like doesn't even matter, and I can't enjoy it because the process of getting there was horrible. And that was, for example, a commitment I made on my fertility journey. That was an 8-year journey, and I chose very early on that no matter what, I deserve to be happy now and live my fullest life. So we traveled, we made love for the sake of making love, and had epic, amazing, crazy, wild sex, like in spite of like, you know, fertility stuff, which can really take a toll on couples, you know, their intimate life. And coming back to the realization that we deserve to have it all, no matter what has happened to us. And one thing that's, I think, a concern for me in the manifestation world is sometimes it's like manifestation exhaustion, or like the truth is we're always going to have desires. We are, especially as female, desire filled creatures, right? And I think it's like embracing that just like I'm cyclical, my desires are ever evolving. So you're not really ever going to get there, because as soon as you're there, you're going to want the next thing, because that is our expansive nature. Like God, Goddess are creative and infinite and expansive, and that is who we are. So for me, having it all is, and the resistance that comes up, I deeply understand that. And what I want to share to people with our audience is like, I shared a glimpse of this, but I grew up with so much trauma and poverty and struggle and strife. I had the feminine example, as you talked about, sacrifice with my mom, and then the patriarchal of like, you know, everything is a struggle and sucks. And like my father was a taxi driver, and he just guilted us so much that he has to struggle so much to provide for us, and we were like indebted to him, you know, for that. And so there's a masculine thing of you have to work your ass off to earn your good, and the feminine of like sacrifice, you know. And I grew up with a mom who wanted to be a teacher or a doctor but became a housewife, so like the messaging was, you know, the man has to provide and the woman has to take care of the stuff at the home. And then on top of that, I had a lot of trauma and oppression. And so I won't give details, but where I should have ended up was should have been like mental illness and likelihood, like, because I have a degree in psychology, and I remember learning that people who went through my kind of trauma usually end up on the street. Usually end up like, especially women with sexual trauma will end up on the street. And that would have been a very likely course for me. And then instead, through this sacred work, right, of deep self-healing, deep alchemy of past pain and wounding, resurrection of my power, like taking back my power, which included, you know, sometimes I just want to say this as a side note, and in our journey, like the work you're doing with me, we get to forgiveness and purification part later. But as you know, right now we're in the fuck this shit part. And the purification process, like the self-healing process with the goddess for me is the path to having it all. Because like I said, I should not have ended up thriving. I would have been lucky to survive. And I was very dysfunctional as a teenager. I had severe post-traumatic stress disorder. So
Right.
to go from being in PTSD and like not even having the will to live and being such a dark place to thriving and being flourishing, like the embodied flourishing goddess. If like, I'm just going to claim that, right? Because in my embodiment, I know my women feel me and I show them it's possible. And then right now becoming a mom. So like before this interview, I was a few minutes late and I told you I had a little emergency with a little poop situation going on and, everyone had to get involved. So it doesn't mean things are going to be perfect, like in our having it all, sometimes something will give a little here and there. And I'm very flexible around it. And I trust that my people, my world, like we all are human and we'll give each other grace as well. But I want everyone to know that as someone who's gone through what I've gone through, so much trauma, and I could have been blocked up to good and not trusted it. I had deep fear of intimacy with men, deep, and people, and trust issues, and all kinds of shit. And my whole life earlier on reflected that lack in every way: money, relationships, and friendships. And coming back to, again, divine feminine self power, Shakti, self-love, self-worth, self-value, self-trust, worthiness, to then say, what the fuck do I actually deserve?
Yes.
And what do I want? And what does my pussy want? Or what does my heart want? What does my soul want? And giving ourselves full permission. So a first step I would recommend for our listeners is, can we actually do this as a practice right now?
Please. I knew it. I was like, it's going to happen.
It's happening. All right. So I'm going to invite everyone. We're going to start nice and soft. Just to place your hands on your heart. And feel into your beautiful heart. Feel the goddess with you, whatever the goddess means to you. Me, I'm feeling for us, goddess Aphrodite, the beautiful goddess of love and especially self-love, is here. Opening your heart, feel this beautiful pink light shining through it. As you ask yourself, what does my heart want? What is my heart's deepest, truest desires? And your soul also speaks through your heart. So just let these beautiful divine desires become clear to you. And now we're just going to gently, softly, sensually rub our hands down and bring them down to our wombs, placing our hands on our wombs, feeling the beautiful Shakti of Goddess Lakshmi, whose image you've seen behind me for overflow, abundance, fertility, creativity, the expression, fulfillment of all desires and overflow that you create through the Shakti, the power of your womb. Asking, what does my womb want? And now we're going to take our hands lower and touch our beautiful yonis. And I see goddesses Hathor, Egyptian goddess Hathor, and Yoruba goddess Oshun here. Goddesses of feminine, divine pleasure and unapologetic desire. Asking, what does my pussy want? Taking some nice, luscious breaths with the sacred sound of the sound of pleasure. Full permission Get in touch with these desires. And now gently touching yourself one more time, your yoni coming up to your womb and up to your heart, pressing your hands together, bowing down, thanking the goddesses that showed up for you in this moment, knowing that they are all goddesses within your heart, your womb, your yoni, your being. And affirming, I give myself full permission to name and to claim my deepest desires. So be it. And so it is.
So be it, and so it is. Oh,
Juicy.
that
I
was,
love how it's like so like gentle. It starts off and then it gets all raw
I
and
know,
sexy.
right? And then we get to, it was so, I have to immediately share. So my heart just, she wanted to be soft. She wanted to be held. She wanted ease. She just said, it's okay to be soft. And then, yeah, to not be in survival mode. And then, honey, that sacral space, that womb space was like, I want to live the life that I create. I want to live by my own government, my own laws, my own truth, my own definition of success and abundance. And then my pussy, honey, he wanted to remember that I am that bitch. To never forget that, right? Because sometimes I forget.
Oh, I love it. And so, Jasmine, we just had like a little glimpse of what it means to be like this is our body. That is our freaking channel of magic, right?
Yes.
So we don't need to go to like 10 self-help workshops or whatever, even read all the books to take a moment and get really truly in touch with what the fuck do I truly want? And that, like getting in touch with that, literally with our hands on ourselves, it shuts out everyone else's voice and message, right? Everything we've learned and been taught and told and guilted about and shamed about what we can't have, it's just gone as we tune in. And the second step is trusting this, trusting that these desires that have come through because they're coming from the same power that creates these desires into being. So it's not coming from a place of like just wanting and longing. The source of its creation is birthing the desire. Do you know what I mean? So like the heart space is the source of all love and ease and softness and being safe and to be out of survival mode and into like living with ease and overflow. That's actually the truth of who you are. And it's not even at this point then a desire, but actually your truth speaking through and wanting expression. And I love this as a shift in our manifestation process and having it all. Whereas the masculine says, okay, I want to manifest this thing. So here are all my steps to get there. I'm going to meditate every day. I'm going to visualize. I'm going to say these mantras. It can even, the trap is, it can turn spiritual practices into the masculine trap of working hard and earning and proving and getting. The feminine is so different. The feminine is, what are my desires? And then like, oh, I desire this because I am love. I am abundance. I am having it all. I am overflow. I am Shakti. I am bliss. I am pleasure. I am freedom. I am power. I am beauty and radiance and health and vitality and fertility, creativity. And I am this. And the desire is a catalyst through which this part of myself gets to be expressed. And we're not getting it from out there and manifesting or even attracting it to us, but we're being Lakshmi, Aphrodite, Ocean, Hathor, where we are unleashing it from within us. So I hope that shift helps people on the path. Like I get to name my desires, I get to trust them, and I get to shift that these aren't things I have to accomplish, but things I get to unleash.
Yes. Oh my God, that is such a radical shift. The wording itself is so liberating and such a embodiment of rebellion, of dismantling this patriarchy that tells us there are steps to do and commit to. Oh my God, how beautiful.
And that it's out there and outside of you. And the
Yes.
God says, oh, it's in us.
Yeah. And once we tap into it within it, we are the vibrational frequency would align and
yeah, exactly. Then it just naturally gets reflected back to us as the soulmate, as the dream clients, as the money, like, you know what I mean? As the things, they just inevitably show up. But we are being it and radiating it.
So delicious. That exercise was incredible. Thank you. And so the last question before I give you space to let people know how they can work with you, because I'm sure people are salivating for the opportunity. I know that in my personal journey, obviously Goddess work has been there from day one before I even had the dialogue to name it, but it wasn't until like Goddess Hathor like presented herself to me that I was like, oh, like this is real. These women that we've heard stories about are real and they guide us. And now I have like, you can see my altar, I have like Yemayan, Mother Mary and Hathor and Kuan Yin and like Oshun's up there. So like I work with everyone now, but I think it wasn't until that initial goddess showed up for me that I really woke up to it. And so I'm curious to know if you have any like one tip or one seed to plant for someone who like wants to work with a goddess and doesn't know how to either call them in or how to recognize them, or yeah, just how to sort of work with someone who's working with you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So in terms of how to start working with the goddesses, I mean, if it's okay to share, like I offer a lot of free YouTube videos because of that, because I want it to be an accessible entry point for people, or actually people on the path deep and into it as well. But we can look up if we want to know the names. I believe, the goddess is in all of us and in their names and forms in all times and cultures and shapes and colors and sizes. It's so beautiful to get to know them. Like when you got to know Hathor. So same, I relate to you in that I didn't know specifically that I had Kalima with me in my teenage years, and Lilith, where I really needed their strength and fuck this shit power and their divine protection to fight a lot of the fights that I had to. And then later learning about them, like, oh, it was you. I think we talked about this too, about the blue, and you know what I mean? So I won't like close that, but
Yeah, but yes.
recognize later that, oh, that energy that I was in was actually like fully describes this goddess that I've just met, right? So I would say trust that you already right now are experiencing the goddess in different ways. And then if you're curious and like want to know her names and her faces, go on that journey. Like get a book that resonates with you, get a goddess oracle deck. Those could be really fun. That was something I really loved doing in the beginning of my journey as well. And there's so many amazing goddess oracle decks right now. If it's okay to share my book, Goddess Reclaimed, because you go through the whole feminine process of meeting the goddess and the transformation that we've been talking about, really like the inner healing, the transformation, and then the rise and the embodiment of the goddess. And in that, in each initiation, you meet a goddess, but I also share like a bonus where there's additional goddesses that complement that goddess. So it's just like a way if you really want to, I don't like to be a student, but like do that research so you can start naming.
Yeah.
And also know like what helps me a lot in my day-to-days, because I know the goddesses so intimately, is like, okay, I need Isis in this moment.
Yeah.
To like, I need divine feminine healing magic right now. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Yeah.
we could say the experience that we want, but it's so fun because the goddesses are so accessible. And so if like my Egypt tour, when I was launching it, I did rituals and I continue to for with the goddesses. And if I'm launching something for my business, I do prayer with Lakshmi Ma. So instead of just saying, okay, I'm doing an abundance ritual in general, or I pray to or invoke or invite divine feminine abundance, I know the essence, but it's so beautiful to say, Lakshmi Ma and Vasudhara and, Abundantia, and like knowing that each of them has their own special energy and gift as well. It's so fun. It's like having a spiritual support team of like endless, divine, most loving, feminine personification. You know what I mean? Even when you say a mantra, by the way, I think mantras are beautiful if you're into like a Sanskrit or Buddhist tradition practice. Like Lakshmi has a mantra, Om Shri Maha Lakshmi Swaha. Chanting that every day for 40 days unleashes her abundance energy in us. So there's so many ways, but I would say some way of getting a book or a deck where you get to learn about many of their names. And as you said, like, I think their history is important as well, to honor their background, their culture is really beautiful to help you to have a more personal connection with the goddess in all her names.
Yes. Oh, beautiful. Absolutely. And the fact that they're so culturally diverse. I think
Yeah.
I didn't grow, I am half Black, but I didn't grow up around my Blackness. And so it's actually been really healing for me to work with West African goddesses like Oshun and Yemaya, right? To kind of feel
I'm
deeper into
so
my
happy for
culture.
you.
Yeah,
Yes.
totally. So it's just, it's so worth noting that if you come from any sort of background that's rich in culture, to like look at the goddesses also that embody that, and to get close to
Yes.
your heritage, right? To your
Oh,
DNA. So
and I mean, I'm sure for you, such a remembrance and a
yes.
reclamation.
Oh my God, totally. I mean, I'm an only child, so like when I was working, especially with Oshun and Yemaya, I was remembering memories of when I would be in my room, like playing with my dolls by myself, but I always felt like I had like sisters with me. And now I realized like they were with me, they were playing with me, you know, and I was kind of upstairs, like, you know, surviving any arguments I was hearing downstairs, and I was held, right? So it's just so, yeah, it really deepens the knowing of I've always been supported and I've always been guided. And yeah, and it gives a name and a face, and it's more powerful to call in Isis versus like somebody help me get through this. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
totally.
Exactly. And whatever, like, I know you said your people are quite young. So if like, I know my teenage nieces right now, they're all about, love or whatever. And it's like,
Yes.
okay, I should say which goddess I pray to get like a lovely boy. It's like,
Yes,
oh,
literally.
he can help you. And these are the love goddesses, Hathor and Ocean will help with this. And
Yes, totally. Yeah. Oh my God. My
I
family,
mean,
they're
like
Catholic.
we were talking earlier about how I just love that the newer generations are so much more into this than like my generation. I was a woo-woo hippie, but now you guys are all working with crystals and you're smudging and you know with astrology. So it's like
Yes.
imagine knowing the goddesses and you get to like charge your crystal or do your ritual knowing which goddess to call on. It's just so magical.
Oh my God, no, I'm so excited for anyone listening to this who's at that part of that journey, because it's really going to deepen and enrich already your rituals, and the way that you're showing up in your magic. So thank you for imparting your honey, your medicine, your just everything about you is so delicious. And you're such a Taurus, it's insane. Like you just embody
No.
fusion energy. I love it. So please let the people know where they can find you, your offerings, how they can work with you, and
My
all that.
pleasure. Well, first of all, thank you, Jasmine, so much for having me. I love you and I love this
Love you.
beautiful channeling and co-creation of celebrating the goddess. Oh, and I do want to say one more thing is you shared about your altar. That is a beautiful way once people start connecting with goddesses is
Yes.
to get those goddess images in your
Yes.
home, on your altar. Create a sacred space for yourself
Yeah.
where you have, even if you print out pictures on the internet today, like, and then eventually you want to get the goddess statues. It's just so beautiful because you get to see them and feel their energy and presence every day. So that
Yes.
just came from me. That I hope gives people like a tangible to connect with the goddess. And then for me, I'm at flourishinggoddess.com as my official website, but there's many beautiful offerings. There's goddess circles, which I love. I would recommend as a first step, like again, my YouTube channel is totally free, but then Goddess Reclaimed is really like a beautiful way to go on a journey. Some women say they will take this and like give themselves a 2-week retreat and go through one. And some women will spend like a month or two with each initiation. So like this is a journey that's for you very intimately with the goddesses. And then if people want to go deeper on Flourishing Goddess School, there's goddess circles where I lead you through a specific goddess. We deeply not just honor her, but awaken her through us, through her wisdom and an activation meditation. And as you know, my deepest work is my 6-month goddess mystery school, the Awakened Goddess Training, which is for me the most powerful magical vortex to be in. It's deep and life-changing. And I mean, you're in it. And that's like my deepest service and devotion to. But I hope that people find the goddess in whatever way resonates with them. And if they desire, like on YouTube, there's so much free content that they can enjoy and a lot of meditations, even a full moon meditation, by the way. There's a full moon goddess meditation. I know right now in the recording it's a full moon, but whenever it comes out, womb meditation, divine feminine power meditation. So, and then I also like get into deeper things about healing your sexual wounds or boundary
Ah,
settings.
oh,
Lots of different ways to soak up the goddess.
yes, beautiful. And outside of those incredible offerings, I think what's most important, and for anyone to take away for themselves too, is that your medicine truly is extracted through your being, through people witnessing how you have embodied liberation, devoted to living a life of full potential and pleasure. And I think that, yeah, anyone who gets to witness you really feeds off of that. And so for anyone who wants to embark on this work, just know that however you navigate your purpose and your mission and however you show up in service to this, collective, know that also it's just in being in this journey and letting yourself feel deserving of your desires that you do the work, because anyone that witnesses you gets permission to do the same for themselves, and that's how we dismantle things. So just thank you for what you're doing just by being you. I'm doing the same. I'm doing my best. That's all we really can do. And
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Jasmine. It's been such a delight. And I hope we served everybody.
Yes, of course. Like I said, check out her work and walk with as much grace and power as you possibly can.
And pleasure.
Yes, period.